Kevin Feige reveals why Nick Fury waited until Infinity War to page Captain Marvel. I'm Amy Vorpahl. Jessica Chobot is still out, but we expect her to return soon. Very soon. The box office has spoken, and it's confirmed Captain Marvel made a whole lot of money its opening weekend, with audiences turning out in droves and killer performances all around. Carol Danvers' intro to the Marvel Cinematic Universe was a smash. But one thing Carol Danvers' solo stint didn't do was answer a question many fans have had on their minds since seeing Avengers: Infinity War. If the world's most powerful Avenger was just on the other side of a modified pager, why did Nick Fury wait so long to call her back to Earth? Were the Chitauri invasion or the Ultron attacks not big enough emergencies? Well, we now have an answer to this gnawing question, thanks to one Mr. Kevin Feige, MCU orchestrator. Now, we knew previously from the Captain Marvel Prelude comic, which is considered to be canon in the MCU, that Nick Fury always considered Captain Marvel as a backup plan. She was his break glass in case of emergency that he would only use if the shit really hit the fan, which certainly seemed to be the case when half the world's population started turning to dust. But it's fair to say that a large-scale alien invasion over New York or an army of killer robots tearing a city out of the ground and slamming it back into the earth could also constitute shit hitting the fan. Luckily, our friends over at /Film had a chance to sit down with Marvel head honcho Kevin Feige and get to the truth of the matter, whose answer came in two parts. First off, when asked about why a giant hole opening in the sky with aliens flooding out didn't trigger hitting the pager, Feige responds with, "She does say it's gotta be a real emergency, right?" What exactly about alien invasion doesn't scream emergency to you, Feige? But interviewer Peter Sciretta follows Feige's thought process, chiming in with, "Because that was just a city. I guess that's not the world." Yep, just a city where millions of people from all over the world live and visit en masse every day. Not to be too much of a stickler here, but the invasion of a major city would probably lead to the rest of the world being invaded and taken over not too long afterwards. Also, are we forgetting that Ultron's plan was to literally wipe out the human population? Feel like your definition of emergency might be a little too limited, Kevin. But of course, we've said yes to this crazy MCU ride for over a decade now, and we're willing to keep suspending our disbelief. So fine, Nick Fury did not deem the Chitauri invasion or Ultron as big enough emergencies to call in the big guns. And you know, if we put a really positive spin on this, it just shows that he had a lot of faith in the Avengers. So you know what? We're back on board. Now, back to part two of Kevin Feige's answer. The other thing I'd say is, how do you know he never hit it? How do we know he never pushed it before? We've never seen him push it before. That doesn't mean he never did. Whoa, just a second there, Professor. You mean to tell us that Captain Marvel may have had other adventures on Earth that we just don't know about because we haven't seen them yet? Oh, we get it now. This is a very clever way for Feige and Marvel Studios to leave room for more pre-Avengers Endgame Captain Marvel movies. And you know what? We see the bait on the hook and we'll bite. If more pre-Infinity War Captain Marvel movies are coming down the pipeline, then we're willing to make adjustments to the MCU canon for Carol Danvers, even if it means we'll have to accept as fact that Carol has been back to Earth after the events of Captain Marvel, and she must have somehow kept a low profile since none of the Avengers even recognize her symbol on the modified pager. Kind of like how Wonder Woman had supposedly disappeared after the events of the first Wonder Woman film, only to reemerge for BVS, but now we are getting a Wonder Woman sequel set in 1984. It's a retcon, but ultimately this brings up the problem with retcons. When you have such an interconnected universe, it gets tricky trying to fit in all these different heroes, narratives, and worlds while leaving room in between for stories we haven't heard. And we've already had quite a few retcons in the MCU, like in Iron Man 2, the little boy in the Iron Man mask being retconned to be the actual Peter Parker. And it was a retcon that fixed the 8 years later blunder in Spider-Man: Homecoming. To be fair, the MCU is based on comics, and comics are notorious for resets, redos, and retcons. At the end of the day, we understand that to keep this cinematic universe going, they're gonna need to occasionally stretch timelines and facts to make newer stories work. And you know what? We're fine with it. But what do you folks think? Would you be down for a Captain Marvel sequel/MCU prequel? How do you think Kevin Feige will retcon mutants and the X-Men into the MCU? And since Captain Marvel took place in the 90s, what threats could Captain Marvel fight in the 2000s besides Y2K, Ed Hardy, and Frosted Tips? Let's discuss. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and mash that little bell to get notified every time we go live with a show or drop a new video. And if you're still watching, we want to throw you a like. So here it is. Thumbs up for you and you alone. Tell your friends to make them jealous.